Greetings. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Becca Choate, and I serve as an Associate for Global Advocacy and Education with Global Ministries of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, and United Church of Christ. Welcome to Wednesdays with the World, a United Church of Christ webinar series. This series highlights the ways in which the quest for justice is intersectional and global, providing opportunities for increased awareness of global concerns and highlighting opportunities for advocacy in action. Today's webinar is called Repairing the Breach: Climate Justice, Land, Debt, and Reparations. I'd like to now introduce the Reverend Sakina Hamlin, the UCC's Minister for Economic Justice, who will introduce our speakers and moderate this conversation. Sakina.
Thank you so much, Mr. Becca. We are so glad to be here with you today because truly this work is intersectional, as all work is within our Christian faith, for we are a part of a Christian community, a family of God. And so with that, I just welcome all our siblings, those with us on YouTube, those with us in Zoom, and those who will be with us later on, whose lives may lend itself where you will be with us, not while we're live, but yet still be fed by the meat of what is brought today. We're very thankful because we have key ministers with us today that are doing great work, working with great partners as they repair the breach. This Earth Day, and yet even Earth Month, we want you to be able to expand your understanding of climate change so as to really understand how it intersects with settler colonialism, with extractive economies, with capitalism, which in and of itself is debt-based, with ways in which we continue to keep people in poverty due to low wages and lack of adequate health care, and ways in which the whole notion of profits over people lends itself to extract and to engage in ecological devastation that leaves people often in the global South to fend for themselves, while others within the 1-2% of our global citizenry continue to gain wealth. We are here to proclaim that God says no more, and that there is key scriptures that would allow us to have a concept, a context for this work. We're thankful first to hear from the Reverend Philip Peacock, who is the Executive for Justice and Witness for the World Communion of Reformed Churches. He will be with us through video, and we're glad to have him with us as he is one of the architects of the Zac Tax Project. And he will explain more about that project, but at its core, it attends to the ecological devastation, the land theft, the poverty, the debt, the climate change that is among us, and calls our churches to act through the Luke text in our biblical narrative. We are also thankful to have with us the Reverend Dinabandhu Manchala, who is our executive for Southern Asia for the Global Ministries of the United Church of Christ and the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. I was told about the great work being done in Bangladesh and by Reverend Manchala, as well as our partners in the Christian Commission for Development in Bangladesh by the Reverend Dr. Karen Georgia Thompson. And having gone on a virtual pilgrimage, was simply blown away by the resiliency of our siblings in Southern Asia. but also by how we have an opportunity to repair this world together and to hold corporations, to hold economies accountable for the devastation that they have done, and that which we have been complicit in and not speaking up even louder. And so we're going to start off with the video from Reverend Peacock providing some context, and then we'll welcome Reverend Manchala to talk about the great work being done in Bangladesh and his leadership there as well. Thank you so much, Becca.
Dear friends, I'm extremely pleased to be speaking to you today, albeit through this recorded video. I really wish that I could have been with you, but unfortunately, a busy travel schedule has made it difficult for me to personally be at this webinar today. At the outset itself, I'd like to thank the Reverend Shekinah and of course the Reverend Karen Georgia Thompson for inviting me to be with you here today. And I am here to speak to you about the Zac Tax Campaign. The Zac Tax Campaign is part of a wider process called the New International Economic and Financial Architecture, which is a joint program of the World Communion of Reformed Churches, the World Council of Churches, the Council for World Mission, the Lutheran World Federation, and the Methodist World Conference. I would like to begin today by outlining 3 things that mark our economic situation today. The first is that we live in a world which has a deep, deep inequality. In fact, 80% of the world lives on $3.8 a day. The city, Calcutta, that I come from, is the city with the highest amount of urban poverty in the world. About 70% of its population lives below the poverty line. And where I come from, the poverty line is defined in terms of that amount of money which will buy you 1,200 calories of food, the minimum requirement, daily requirement for an adult. And so we live in a time in which inequality is at an all-time high. In the city of Calcutta, where I live, of course, while 70% of its population lives under such deplorable conditions, at the same time, it is not unusual to find the latest model of Audi or Mercedes-Benz on the streets, with people inside eating from their buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken in air conditioning while children are begging outside. The second point that the economic system today is the climate crisis. There is no doubt that we have reached a tipping point as far as the climate crisis goes. We still have a small window of opportunity that is closing down very fast on us, and we hope that a few gains will be made by 2050, from which there is a point of no return. We know that capitalism as an economy treats the environment like a tap and a sink, a tap which can be opened to take out unlimited resources, and a sink into which pollution, an n amount of pollution, can be just dumped. Capitalism as an economic system doesn't take the environment into account and has been treating this planet, the only one that we have, as a source of unlimited resources for a growth economy. The third thing that marks our economic context today is, of course, the legacies of colonialism in which much of the world has actually emerged. It is not surprising that a small country like Cuba produces almost half the amount of sugar for the world, or at least used to. Or another small country like Sri Lanka produces so much tea. These are not countries which consume these products, but rather are part of plantation economies developed during the time of colonialism from around the world so that resources from around the world were brought into the centers of the global north. Entire economies were subject to this plantation economy. And not only was it in terms of resources, but it was also in terms of people. And I'm sure that all of you are aware of the terrible legacies of slavery that continues today in the oppression of people of color all around the world, but has its roots really in this legacy of colonialism which tried to subjugate resources and people for the sake of profit. Given these three things of inequality, the climate crisis, and the legacies of slavery and colonialism, how are we to move forward with this? The Zacchaeus tax campaign is an attempt to ask for just taxation in 5 specific areas. Firstly, we call for the enactment of progressive wealth taxes at global and national levels to curb the growing concentration of wealth in the hands of an increasingly powerful few. And particularly, we are calling for a 1% tax on wealth between 1 to 5 million euros and 2% tax on wealth above 5 million euros. Secondly, we demand a stop to tax evasion and avoidance by multinational corporations and affluent individuals, particularly looking at how we can close down tax havens. We are calling for progressive carbon and pollution taxes at different levels to protect our only planetary home. And we call for an immediate implementation of a financial transaction tax on trade in equities, bonds, currencies, and derivatives to curb harmful speculative activities. But apart from this, we also demand reparations for these legacies of colonialism and slavery, and particularly debt cancellation as a further measure to be able to do this. Our campaign is based really on the story of Zacchaeus. Now, as we know, Zacchaeus was a person found in Luke 19 who goes to meet Jesus, and his encounter with Jesus leads him to have a change and to return that which he has stolen so many times more. The text, of course, can be read in 2 ways. In the one more traditional way, it is about this person, Zacchaeus, meeting with Jesus and therefore undergoing a change. But another way of reading the text, and particularly if we account for the fact that Zacchaeus was probably one who lived with dwarfism, a disability, and he, in an effort to meet Jesus, when everyone looked down at him because of his dwarfism, climbs up into the sycamore tree, and Jesus ends up looking up at him, that Zacchaeus is one who has already been doing these things. And this is an alternative reading of the text. That Zacchaeus, as one who lives on the margin of society, has already been involved in an alternative economic system. And this is what we are trying to say, that alternative economic systems already lie on the margins of our society. And therefore, finally, and very quickly, what do we expect our churches to do? Firstly, we call on our churches to discern and study the issues around taxation and reparations for slavery and ecological debt. Secondly, we urge for creative and prophetic readings of the Zacchaeus story in Luke 19, 1-10, and particularly looking at verse 8, where there is a difference of reading in this text, where Zacchaeus is telling Jesus, this is what I have already been doing, rather than Jesus coming and changing Zacchaeus' life. Thirdly, we encourage churches to join the Zacchaeus campaign and lobby and advocate with national governments and global financial and economic institutions for tax and reparative justice. And finally, we call on churches to organize their own finances in line with Zacchaeus' principles for just taxation. Friends, I wish you all a very good and informative webinar, a time of learning, but also a time of discernment. Thank you so much for having me.
Reverend Manchala. Unmute yourself, please.
Yes, please. Yeah, we'll do that. Let me also do the sharing of the screen. Just a minute, please. Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, friends. I'm glad to be a part of this conversation, and I'm sure all of you also are. I've been asked to share about the responses to climate change by drawing on the initiatives of one of Global Ministries partners in Southern Asia, namely the Christian Commission for Development in Bangladesh. Actually, I really wish we had one or some of them this morning with us to walk us through some of their engagements and activities in Bangladesh while as they address the challenges of climate change. But the time difference and also the fact that this happens to be the time of Ramadan makes it difficult for them to be a part of this activity. But let me walk you through what some of the things that they have been doing in response to climate change. But before I do that, let me just go back to the theme for a minute. Repairing the breach, climate justice, land, debt, reparations. Now, we are not only called to repair the breaches, or serve with towel and basin, but also create conditions for the celebration of life with justice, dignity, and life for all. And that is why we want to repair the breaches. But at the same time, you know, doing this, what our partners in Bangladesh try to do is, they do this repairing of the breach in partnership with those least responsible for climate change. And at the same time, those who are victims of climate change. So let me walk you through the story of the people and the Christian Commission in development in Bangladesh. To start with, let me just sort of give you an idea of where Bangladesh is. Bangladesh is tucked away somewhere in the eastern side of India, completely surrounded by India in all the three sides, except for a little part towards the end, bordering Myanmar. Otherwise, this is all surrounded by India. But actually, if you see all of Bangladesh together, it is the size of one average Indian state. So that's what Bangladesh is. Now, Bangladesh is. Let me give you some basic information about Bangladesh. There are two distinct identity markers for Bangladesh. One is language and religion. 98% of the total population of Bangladesh, they speak Bengali, which is also spoken in the neighboring sort of state of West Bengal in India. And it is also the third largest Muslim majority country. And it is an emerging economy ranked as the 33rd largest in the world by nominal GDP. Poverty has halved since 2001. In the past, it used to be considered one of the five most underdeveloped countries, but now it is actually surging ahead. And it is one of the world's largest modern garment exporters. And it is surging ahead in human development. And it also hosts one of the largest refugee populations, especially namely the Rohingyas. But Bangladesh also faces certain challenges, the most important being the adverse effects of climate change, poverty, illiteracy, corruption, and human rights abuses. And Bangladesh is recognized to be one of the countries most vulnerable to climate change. Most of Bangladesh is less than 12 meters above sea level. By 2020, a 3-foot rise in sea level will inundate some 30% of the land and displace more than 39 million people in Bangladesh. In addition to that, natural calamities such as floods, tropical cyclones occur almost every year, combined with the effects of deforestation, soil degradation, and erosion. So amidst all of this, the Christian Commission for Bangladesh has been trying to respond by involving people in its attempt to meet the challenges of climate change. Christian Commission for Development in Bangladesh was established in 1974. It is a leading service agency with focus on poverty reduction, with people's participation in development, emergency aid and relief, climate justice, and many other similar concerns. It envisions a just and caring society where poor people live in peace with dignity and harmonious relationship with all of God's creation. And its particular emphasis is to strive to create a society where the poor, the marginalized, and vulnerable people can claim and enjoy their rights and seek justice for a sustainable livelihood. Now, CCDB, as it is widely known and called, has 4 major programmatic emphasis. One, comprehensive poverty reduction program. The Global Ministries has been a supporter of this program for a very long time. 2, sustainable agriculture. 3, marginalized communities. And 4, climate change, which is an area of engagement for Global Ministries for the past 5 years or so. Now, to start with, I just want to sort of give you an overview of the work. First is a comprehensive poverty reduction program. This work is done in several parts of Bangladesh and in several districts. Thousands of such communities, as you see in this picture, mostly women, are beneficiaries and also the lead agents of these processes of development. The second one is sustainable agriculture, which focuses a great deal on alternative farming methods, organic farming, and especially in terms of organic pesticides and all of that. And the third one is that even as the CCDB caters to the challenges of the marginalized, to the poor in general, but it has a special accent on reaching out to those who are the most marginalized in the Bangladesh society. And the fourth one is climate change. And I'm going to sort of give you an overview of what CCDB does as part of its climate change efforts. To begin with, there are 4 components to their responses. One is Climate Center, Climate Technology Park, Climate Resilient Communities, and Climate Resilient Agriculture. So these are the 4 components, and I'm going to walk you through these 4. Now, to tell you briefly, but I must mention about the common features or the salient features of their work on climate justice. One, the major theme or the motto of their work is to enable vulnerable communities to become resilient communities. Now, how do they make this? How do they attempt to make them resilient communities? Is by sort of focusing on these 3 areas of mitigation, adaptation, and also alternatives. So these are the 3 major steps that they follow, or the major emphasis that CCDB follows as it pursues its goal of making these vulnerable communities become resilient communities. And it does so by using local resources, and it responds to local needs so that the people involved do not need to borrow technology, resources, infrastructure from outside, from somewhere else, but use whatever that is available right within their own social and cultural experience and context. And then fourth thing is people's participation. It is not just that some experts do that, but it's basically by involving communities and people, they try to do this. And the next point is a very important thing. As I said, Bangladesh is a predominantly Muslim country, but you can see that, we have seen some of my colleagues who are there, and we have seen that it is actually people together for a safe earth. And this is what the kind of impression that you come back with when you visit these places, because the religion doesn't seem to play any role at all in their responses. It is actually Christian Commission for Development in Bangladesh, and we found a number of Hindu, Buddhist, and Muslim staff and communities involved in this work of addressing the challenges of climate change and also sort of protecting the vulnerable communities. And lastly, it is also about advocacy, but both at the local level and also at the larger level. In fact, CCDB has been quite engaged in the global efforts, especially COP26 and other initiatives. Now, let me just sort of mention briefly about the Climate Center. Climate Center is a huge area, and I'm going to sort of show you a video at the end of this presentation. It actually focuses on development of alternative technologies and adaptation strategies. It promotes organic farming and food, agrotourism, and it advocates for the land rights of the displaced people, because people are displaced for no reason of no fault of theirs, but at the same time they cannot be left to themselves to fend for themselves. So it sort of takes up their cause of justice, and it defends the social, cultural, economic rights of the climate migrants, and it promotes ecosystem-based resource management, and also focuses a great deal on food and water security, and it experiments and promotes experiments on low carbon solutions. And this is actually the whole plan of the Climate Center. On one hand, you have an area that engages on this particular areas of organic food production, agrotourism, and then you have climate park, and then you have the climate campus. This is how it is. It is a huge campus outside Dhaka. It's about a 22-acre plot in the district of Ghazipur. And so this is how it looks, an aerial view of the Climate Center. And what it does is, 1 minute, yeah. Yeah, I'm just sort of struggling with these frames. Explore contemporary knowledge, solutions, and other things, and development of climate change adaptation, and stimulate all climate knowledge, and also advocacy and campaign for policy formulation, and also it tries to sort of attract and promote local knowledge to global actors, to show how people can be involved in addressing issues of climate change. And the second component of this work is the Climate Technology Park, which addresses climate-induced challenges. It is not just sort of mitigation, adaptation anymore, but it is also finding alternatives. How do we sort of come up with technologies and methodologies by which we are able to sort of offset the challenges or the other crises that is sort of being induced by climate change? So there are plenty of experiments that are going on. of a sustainable and low-cost technology effective for climate change mitigation and adaptation. And so this is how the climate park looks like. It has, in this part of one part, you have a climate, a coastal zone. So there's a lot of experimentation of how agriculture can be sort of still pursued in areas where the coastal places are challenged by climate change. And then you have the other side, the blue area, which is a drought zone. And then this is the sandy area, and this is the forest area. So there are the four different climate zones. There are lots of experimentations that are going on in this climate technology park, which probably is one of the very few in the world, and they even claim that this is the only one in Asia which has come up and which is going to be inaugurated in October 2022. And then the third area of engagement is climate resilient communities. To help the communities, mostly the people along the coastlines, as I showed you in the second frame, when I showed you the map of Bangladesh, uh, those along the southern coast, to help them to cope, to reduce the risks of their exposure to natural disasters, and also to help them to build and strengthen community resilience, and also to promote carbon emission reduction, food security, and alternative skills training. So these are the five major foci of that area of work that is related to climate resilient communities. What they do is that they have regular courtyard meetings, and they use a lot of culture, folk songs, cultural expressions like folk songs, drama, videos, and also a whole lot of education sessions for communities, both in schools and informal education is also offered to help them to evolve feasible coping and adaptation mechanisms in the face of increasing climate change challenges. And the fourth one is climate resilient agriculture. And this is one area that Global Ministries has been quite engaged in, sort of supporting the work there. And this is about adaptive technologies to help low-income communities faced with soil erosion, salination, droughts and monsoons, cyclones and floods, and other climate change issues. This is particularly focused to meet the challenges faced by those along the coastlines. A number of communities are exposed to all of these things that I have mentioned here: soil erosion, salination, droughts and monsoon, cyclones and floods, and other climate change issues right through the year. There is no time that they are free of any of these challenges. So that is where CCDB works to help these communities to become resilient, especially in terms of food production, and also to sort of protect themselves from the challenges posed by climate change. So there are a number of issues that it deals with: agroforestry, climate tolerant crops, and rice production. You can see all of those things that are listed here. I'm not able to, yeah. Cropping pattern, system of rice intensification, floating vegetable garden, organic farming, medicinal plants, beekeeping, vertical agriculture, sack gardening, and also drip irrigation, and rainwater harvesting, hydroponics, cage fish, early warning system, automated weather stations, mud house, raised tube well, floating rice cultivation, organic farming, and treadle pump. So these are some of the things which actually feature CCDB's work on climate resilient agriculture. Let me conclude once again by reiterating the work of by work of our partner CCDB in addressing climate change. So what they do, as I said, is that it works with people who are least responsible for climate change, and it works with people who are victims of climate change. And it aims to sort of make these vulnerable communities become resilient communities. And it follows these three principles of mitigation, adaptation, and alternatives. And it draws on local resources and local needs. And it sort of works with people. And it also brings people from different religions, cultures, and languages, and what have you, together for the common agenda of striving towards for a safe earth for all. And at the same time, it is actively engaged in advocating for the rights of the people who are affected by climate change, and also for the safe earth, both locally and globally. So with these things, I would invite you to sort of visit the website CCDB to learn more about the work of the organization. Thank you very much for this. And I'm going to ask my colleagues to show the video, which actually sort of sums up what I have said till now. Thank you very much.
Bangladesh is considered as one of the most vulnerable countries to the adverse impacts of climate change. CCDB has been working in building climate resilience since 2012.
CCDB established a dedicated climate change program in 2009. The program has developed 4 different strategic components based on our learning and national and international needs.
আমাদের বড় সমস্যা হলো ঝড়, সাইক্লোন, নদী ভাঙ্গন, মাটি ও পানিতে লবণ। আমরা সিসিডিবির সহায়তায় প্রথমে গ্রামে জরিপ করি। উচ্চ, মধ্য এবং ঝুঁকিপূর্ণ পরিবারগুলো শনাক্ত করি। সেই অনুযায়ী সকলে মিলে পরিকল্পনা করি।
CCDB brings people into action through establishing their own community climate resilience center.
আমাদের এই জমিতে লবণের কারণে কোনো ফসল হইতো না। সিসিডিবি আমাদের পরামর্শ দিয়েছে, প্রশিক্ষণ দিয়েছে এবং উন্নত জাতের বীজ দিয়েছে, ট্রেনিং দিয়েছে, তাই আমরা এখন প্রতি বছর 3 ফসল পাই।
People learn how to take adaptive measures. A strong focus is given on locally accepted cost-effective technologies.
পদ্মা সিসিআরসির উদ্যোগে জলবায়ু সহনশীল শিক্ষণ কেন্দ্র আছে। গ্রামের মানুষ এইখানে জলবায়ু সহনশীল প্রযুক্তি ও জৈব কৃষি সম্পর্কে জানতে পারবে।
আমাদের এখানে খাবার পানি খুব সমস্যা। আমরা এই বর্ষা মৌসুমে বৃষ্টির পানি আমরা এইটা ধরে রাখি, এই ট্যাঙ্কিতে আমরা খাই এবং কৃষিকাজে ব্যবহার করি।
The Community Climate Resilience Center has also established a cyclone and flood-resistant grain and seed storage to reduce disaster risks.
আগে সাইক্লোন আসলে আমরা আরচা নেওয়ার মতো জায়গা ছিল না, এখন আমরা সিসিআরসিতে আরচাই নিতে পারি।
Our center serves the people by raising awareness, providing water, enhancing climate resilience in agriculture, and reducing disaster risks. Community people now enjoy access to water, food security, and protection in case of a cyclone.
Climate resilience centers are in Moralganj, Pathorghat and Shamnagar. People become engaged and manage to reduce their risks what they would not have done on their own.
জলবায়ু পরিবর্তন মোকাবেলায় এই সিসিআরসি এখন মানুষের সুরক্ষা কেন্দ্র। এখান থেকেই আমরা আমাদের সমস্যা সমাধান করে থাকি।
The Climate Change Program conducts action-oriented research with a focus on climate resilience, food security, technology transfer, and climate-induced loss and damage.
Research, Advocacy, and Capacity Development Wing aims to close the knowledge gap on climate change and contribute to more ambitious climate policies building on experiences from CCDB's own project.
It provides context-specific solutions to support the people who are at the front lines of climate change. CCDB's interactive online portal provides access to information services targeting different stakeholders at national and international level.
ট্রেনিংয়ের ফ্যাসিলিটেটরদের যদি কথা বলি তাহলে এখানে যারা আসছেন তারা বেশ আমি বলবো যে তাদের স্ব ক্ষেত্রে তারা বেশ স্বনামধন্য।
ওয়ার্কশপটা আমরা 6 মাস ধরে করব। প্রতি মাসে আমরা 3 দিন এখানে আসি এবং কোর্সটা করি।
প্রেজেন্টেশন এবং গ্রুপ ওয়ার্কের উপরে মানে ইন্সপায়ার করার জন্য তাদেরকে গিফট দেওয়া হয়। এটা আমার মনে হয় যে সবার মধ্যে এনকারেজ করে।
লক্ষ্যটা হওয়া উচিত যে এখান থেকে প্রশিক্ষণার্থীরা নিজেরাই প্রশিক্ষক হিসেবে আবির্ভূত হবেন।
I think it is very effective and it participated by the local NGOs, media personnel, legal personnel, government officials.
CCDB advocates for the transformative change to make Bangladesh climate resilient through consultations and policy advice. The Climate Center is a unique place, 20 hectares in size, situated at Sripur, Ghazipur, which is 60 kilometers north of Dhaka. It consists of a climate technology park, a learning center, and a climate campus. The landscape of the Climate Technology Park is designed to demonstrate the 5 main climatic zones of Bangladesh: the coastal ecosystem, the floodplain zone, the low moisture zone, hills, and Haor. The Climate Center uses interactive learning methods and demonstrates climate technologies designed to overcome climate vulnerabilities.
It offers research, capacity building and learning opportunities on climate change adaptation, mitigation and resilience building.
The Climate Learning Center is a certified green building with conference facilities, exhibition area, video projection facility, training rooms, a climate library, and an interactive learning space for children. The Climate Campus will provide green accommodation facilities. It is designed to host bigger capacity building events. Integral parts of the center's vision are inclusiveness and openness. You are invited to come as a visitor, but you can also become a partner and contribute to make the vision a reality.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Reverend Manchala, for that wonderful presentation and great work of our partners in Bangladesh. I'll ask that Rebecca Choate, who is our global leader for global advocacy and education and engagement, to talk a little bit about some of the other things that our partners are doing. But I also want to lift up that she also leads the United Church of Christ at the United Nations. And this is very important because as Reverend Peacock talked about this global initiative, particularly to battle to reconstruct God's good economy, if you will, the United Nations becomes integral in that, as well as the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we'll talk some more about that after she lifts up some of the other things that our partners are doing. And we'll remind you again to put any questions you have in the chat box. Minister Choate.
Thanks, Sakina, and thanks, Dina Bandhu. I'm really excited for us to hear more about the CCDB. I had the chance to visit there, and really the work that they do is incredible and amazing. And I will just want to put out there that we work with a lot of different partners in all regions of the world where, and climate change is affecting everyone, right? So we have quite a few partners in all these regions doing some of this climate adaptation, mitigation, and prevention work in all areas. And I just want to name just a couple briefly before we get to your questions. So in particular, in Africa, which of course, has, and much like Southern Asia, the poorest among us and the least responsible for contributing to climate change. So a variety of our partners in Africa are working on climate resilient agriculture, much like CCDB has been doing, and ways of organic farming, ways of kind of responsible agriculture, sustainable agriculture that also protects the environment and the economy. So our partner in Zambia, the United Church of Zambia, they're doing it's called a climate. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the name now. Climate resilient churches, I believe, but they are going to local communities. They're talking about climate change. They're talking about ways to adapt and mitigate the effects of climate change, including tree planting. They plant fruit trees that will, one, give folks in the community an income. They can sell the fruit from the trees. Also, a way to eat. Right? They can also eat the fruit from the trees themselves. And then it's reforesting places that have been just destroyed by deforestation. And I will also say a lot of the things that impacting communities like deforestation, like soil erosion, a lot of that comes from extractive industries like mining, like our forestry industry, the forestry industry. And it really, most of those companies are Western companies. They're Canadian, they're American, they're European, and they're not putting profits back into the local communities. So the communities have to adapt to these things. It's like our partner in Zambia is doing. And then in response to various climate disasters, our partner in Puerto Rico, Amanecer 2025, after Hurricane Maria in particular, destroyed their electrical grid in Puerto Rico. Amanecer saw the impact it's had on rural communities, on communities that are, not very connected to the rest of the island, and they have started working on providing emergency backup solar panels for when the power grid goes out again, which it's been doing on and off, for quite a while. So it's providing these communities a way to stay, to have electricity on an emergency basis until their grid is restored. And they're also working on local advocacy around the energy grid, around the exploitation of the natural resources by various companies. So those are just two examples I wanted to highlight, and wanted to just show that a lot of our partners are doing this work. You can go to globalministries.org. I'm going to pop a link in to look at all of our partners working on various climate justice projects. And we'll include a link also to the CCDB's page on globalministries.org. And I encourage you to look, to do some more reading on our website to learn a little bit more. Sakina, back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just to highlight a couple of things, and I'm looking at the time, and I know we're running close to the end of our time together, and want to honor your commitment to this 1 hour. But I do want to point out a couple of things so that we are able to continue to weave together the narrative, if you will. And so as you heard Reverend Manchala talk about as well as Minister Choate talk about the agricultural resilience, and you even heard about CCDB and how they're responding basically to all of the salt water that comes in and ends up messing up the soil. You see all of that related to the need for organic agriculture, but one that is also inclusive and honors the culture that is there. Therefore, you see people in Bangladesh, as he mentioned, to have the seed projects and seed storage and things like that, because seed sovereignty is very important. But I also want to remind you, as we weave together this Zac Tax Project and how it continues to connect with reparatory justice, of something that you may or may not remember, maybe about 12 years or so ago in Haiti, after Haiti was devastated with a hurricane, and a lot of their land, their soil, their seeds, they lost 80% of their organic seeds. And what happened was what I call predatory gifting, where a company came in and had the stamp even of the US, in terms of the US co-signing, as the young people say. Monsanto came in and gifted them with seeds. And there was a big hullabaloo about, why are the Haitians burning seeds? They need seeds. They were burning seeds because they were hybrid seeds. They did not honor the culture. They did not honor the agriculture. They did not honor that which would ultimately be good for their bodies. They were basically using, or going to use, the country as their place to have all these hybrid seeds and all of this food that is grown that is not good for us. And so again, all of this continues that narrative of the extractive economies of still colonial capitalism, sinful capitalism that puts profits over people. And so we've seen questions about, are we going to extend to our churches and conferences information about the Zac Tax Project? Yes, we will. There was a new digital toolkit that came out. We are tweaking it to make it even more UCC friendly and with examples. And so you will get that probably in about a month or two. And keep that all in mind as we continue to push forward, both for the HR 40, which is the House Resolution 40 to be passed in the United States, which deals with a study commission to study reparations for African Americans. All of this is connected, because that which we're doing over here is connected ultimately to this global movement. So then therefore the Zac Tax will be that, that way in which we, with our economic justice ministries, connect to the global movement and the various intersectionality with the ecological devastation, the poverty, the colonialism, the racism, and all of that. So we'll get that to you. I do want to lift up, as our time draws near, that later on today, we are a part, the United Church of Christ, of a reparatory justice working group that we call the National Council of Churches +1. And the +1 is the Religious Action Center for Reform Judaism. And we have a reparatory justice series monthly. This one today will be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and it will be on land and debt. And so we'll make sure to put that in the chat for you as well. I don't see any other questions. If someone else can help me, you know, I have on glasses. I may not see everything. Help me, Lord Jesus. All right. All right. Okay. So then we'll get that information out to you. And we'll also highlight a couple of things then too, as we talk about the reparatory justice movement. Just keep in mind, I want to announce right now that there is discussion, and there will potentially be a reparatory justice direct action in Washington, D.C. on June the 19th. So that will be Juneteenth. More information will come about that, and that will be something that we will actually do with our secular partners as well. But we want to be sure to lift up all of the great work within the global initiative, and that is what our faith communities constantly push. So I will leave it to Becca so that she can make some announcements, and then we will end in prayer.
Thanks, Sakina. Just a couple quick upcoming things. This Saturday is Earth Day, and the UCC's Environmental Justice Ministries is putting on a webinar starting at 10:30 Eastern. If you are interested, I'm going to pop the link in where you can learn more and register for it. And then an exciting announcement in August, the month of August, Global Ministries will be doing a virtual 5K walk, run, jog, and it will be raising money for our partners working on climate justice issues. So we'll have daily actions you can take to promote climate justice, as well as the 5K, virtual 5K. You can find the registration and sign up page. We're using Run Sign Up, so I'm going to pop that link in there. And on, if you're watching this afterwards on YouTube, all of these links will be in the resources in the description of the video. So I encourage you all to join us starting on August 1st for our first ever virtual 5K as Global Ministries. And we're excited to be focusing on climate justice. And I think those are all of my announcements. Sakina, do you want to close us in prayer?
Yes, thank you. Let us pray. God of wonder and God of might, we say thank you for the resiliency of your people. We say thank you that even in the midst of profits over people, even in the midst of racism and colonialism, your people are still able to be led by your spirit, your ruach, in which to combat as well as to sustain their communities. Right now, God, we do ask you for a double portion of your spirit so that we can fight the empire that continues to make it such, so that we can lend our voices to the powers at the United Nations in those so-called developed countries, which in and of itself is a slap in the face to all of your children, so that we can combat the corporations that continue to gain profits on the backs of your people. Help us, God, establish your will and create a just world for all. In the name of the Savior, we pray. Amen. Thank you for being with us.
Siblings in Christ, if this conversation has moved you, if what's been offered here has helped enhance your ministry or your soul, please consider donating towards the annual fund of the United Church of Christ by texting UCC to 41444. Your support will help programs like this in the essential work of the United Church of Christ. Thank you for your support. Be blessed as you continue your day. Know that you are not alone, and we are holding you in prayer. Amen.